Hey guys, this is Tyler here from Cancun, Mexico. So yeah, it's nice seeing everyone. I'm not sure how many people are watching right now, but um, I'm kind of I'm kind of in my apartment. You might say right now. Um, that's I was I actually had someone here, so that wasn't mine. But anyhow, um, yeah, it's been quite some time since I last spoke to people here, and I'm curious to see how everyone is. I'm actually going to go outside here because it's really hot, and um, basically how stuff is where I'm staying. If I am to I have to run my fan. It's kind of loud, so I'm just going to move um, right here. And um, if anyone's wondering, my body's kind of tilted because my shoulder, my left shoulder, I don't know what happened in the neck area. It's kind of a nerve. It's been giving me some issues the past day. It just started. So um, yeah, I had yeah. People might be wondering. My last video, I mentioned my weight. I'm slowly getting back into kind of working on it. I'd actually lost a good amount of weight like in the springtime, and then um, during the latter part of the summer, I kind of got a bit careless, you might say. But I mean, it could be worse. For me, fortunately, I can lose weight pretty quickly. A lot of it is just not over consuming on carbohydrates. That kind of tends to be my Achilles heel. So um, it's as I tell people, once you hit the age of 30, it it, it not everyone, but it feels like when I was in my early to mid 20s, it felt way easier. Honestly, like I could drink like crazy on the weekends, and I never really would have to worry about weight. So um, it's not. I mean, my blood pressure and stuff is pretty good, but being 32 now, it's a little different than being like in my mid 20s. And how long I'm in Mexico, I don't know exactly. But if anyone wants to jump on and join the live, they can certainly can. I'm I don't know how long I'll be on here for, but it's obviously it's Sunday here. And one other thing also is where I'm staying at, the internet is there's multiple modems here, and one of them is iffy, but it's hard to explain. But essentially, I can't. There's only one modem that I can use basically for these lives. So, like I said, if anyone wants to jump on, they certainly can. Um, does anyone here have any like questions on anything or any anything, comments or anything? Okay, one other thing I wanted to talk about briefly is what was I doing basically the past year or year and a half? Because people probably wondered, like I had mentioned that I was working in retail for a while, and that was quite an experience. And then I actually got into teaching. It was like in education. As many people here probably already know, the job sector right now in America is absolutely horrible. And I went into something that I had no intention of getting involved with. I was in a state where I just needed to do something, and that's what I did. I got into like teaching, and um, that was quite an experience, you might say. I started, I was substituting, and I'd even gotten a job offer with the school district. And One thing I would tell someone, especially if you're going into like getting married or whatever, if you're doing anything institutional like in the US, I would highly urge you to get exposure because like being in like a public sector job, I saw a sphere of the US I'd never seen in my life. And it was interesting. Like the problems and everything else, just the society, the decay, like the culture. I mean, the kind of stories that I could have, if I could have filmed like some of these classroom experiences that I had, it would be incredible. I mean, some of those videos honestly would go viral. I suppose if I'd used like a secret camera, I could have like fights that went on in classrooms and just mayhem. I was obviously in Florida and I saw stuff that I like literally I was having nightmares last spring. And for one point in time, I had nightmares for weeks on end. It was so bad. Like they were nightmares related to school shootings and just all sorts of really negative and dark stuff. And that was my experience, but it was very important for me to go through that and experience that part of living or of working in the public sphere. But other than that, my original intention, of course, was to go to Eastern Europe from Florida. I ended up kind of putting stuff on hold due to a variety of reasons. Right now, I'm actually working on a master's degree. I won't say what it's in. If people individually contact me, I can explain what it's in. It actually will help, like career wise. So, I know that a lot of people, especially urge people to avoid like degrees in general, and especially master degrees. But there are places in instances where I think they do serve a purpose. So I started that degree program last June or May, and other than that, like, so going back, I was originally going to go to Europe, put that on hold, and went to Mexico. It's very close, price wise and stuff. It just served my needs. But like I said, if people want to hop on, they can to this live. I don't really have any. Okay, so someone questioned me on um, do you carry a backpack or suitcase with wheels? It's getting cold and wet in Europe. Um, Not a backpack on wheels. My suitcase certainly has wheels. Generally speaking, here in Europe, I or in Mexico, I actually don't usually use a la comba. Um, eh, Generally speaking, I actually don't use any kind of like suitcase on wheels or a backpack on wheels, and even just a backpack in general. I right now I've actually for my back I've tried to avoid any kind of backpack and just simply carry stuff like a like bag for groceries and stuff. So I went to Cozumel in 2007. Like I had not been to Mexico for so many years. And it is really interesting seeing the changes like in that span of time. I was 14, obviously, in 2007. I don't remember everything, but seeing how everything is now, it's really interesting. I had never been to Cancun. My parents, I had other family members that had been to this part of Mexico during that time, and um, mostly positive, honestly. Like I tell people, I mean, you want to use like Uber, it is incredible. You can get like an Uber ride like from here where I am to like the port city in Cancun for like a few dollars. It's unbelievable. Like the price. If I wanted to go like a mile down where I was living in Florida, it would be like at least like $8 to $10. It's such a huge difference there. So now, one thing also objective reality. My brother actually just got back to Europe. He was in Argentina. Um, I have a brother. He has a YouTube channel also. My brother, I can type in his name. He was living in Argentina and he moved to um, or he went back to Central Europe. He's in Poland right now. So it's kind of interesting, kind of seeing his comparison with things. But it's yeah, definitely in Europe, it's cold and wet by this point. It's obviously late September. I always explain that to people. Canada is actually on the same latitude as most of Europe. People think that like Europe is on the same latitude as the US, but that's actually not the case. Russia is on the same latitude of most of Canada. It's in that like northern like sphere. When I lived in Estonia, that's like that's Alaska of the US. So yeah, and that was definitely that played a role. Objective reality. The other thing too is I was using a bike that was absolutely crap when I was in Florida to go to point A to point B, and that was definitely doing a lot of damage. This bike. This is another thing. This is how bad it is in Florida right now. Like it's such a crap show. I'll say my bike that was $50. It was a used bike. I had another bike. Um, there's a story behind that, but I was using this new bike. It was temporary because I was going to leave. That was stolen by some idiot drug like junkie in Pensacola, Florida, in West Florida. It was stolen one day, and I actually I knew who the guy or I knew of the guy because Pensacola isn't a real big city. He was some homeless dude, but I wasn't going to confront him. But what I realized is that bike was actually causing major issues with my left shoulder. So it was actually a blessing in disguise. Eventually, I obviously want to have a vehicle of some sort, a car. I had cars until I was 27 in the US. I started driving to high school when I was 16. So for me, I love cars. I mean, sports cars, etc. I just a lot of it in Florida was both financial and it was just practicality why I didn't like um, I didn't have a car at that point in time. But it's yeah. If anyone though is looking at like going somewhere like Mexico, I always okay. Yeah, and so that makes sense. Magnesium gel in the muscle can help reduce inflammation, and that alcohol and sugar eggs. Okay, that makes sense then. And I've actually read that before. So that was another big fiasco of my life for a long time was the whole alcohol. So I will be doing a different stream on that whole situation. I'm not going to get into that here, but I'll just say that I was a raging like alcoholic for at least a year or so during the time I was in Florida, and that's um, yeah, like I said, that I'll bring that up in a different live stream here. But as far as um, and if anyone's wondering, I am sweating. It's unbelievably the weather in Cancun, Mexico, is very similar to Florida. Now, just note I lived in West Florida. It's the same kind of humidity. The difference is it's a little hotter. The heat here is probably on par with like Miami or Key West. I lived in West Florida, but humidity is just identical to Florida, which is one of the reasons I came here before I was going to go to Europe because I knew that it would be a lot more practical. My body and stuff would be a lot more adjusted to this kind of humidity in Mexico before I went to Europe. Because once I get to Europe, obviously my it's not the wet. I mean, for me, I love the weather in Eastern Europe and Northern Europe. It doesn't bother me a lot. So it's yeah. Anyone who doesn't know this, I was brought up in the upper part of the U.S. close to Canada, and up there it's obviously a lot more mild in the summer times. I think I just find it a lot more comfortable year round than like in the deep south. When you hit the deep south of the U.S., it is just scorching hot, like in the summertime, just like here in Cancun, Mexico. No, I have a friend actually he's in Western Mexico in Guadalajara. If you go to like Ciudad Federal, like the Mexico City or Guadalajara or Puerto Vallarta, like if you get to that part, it's actually quite different. You don't have all the humidity. Based on what people have said, it's more similar to like California. Whereas like you get to the Yucatan Peninsula, it's like being in Florida. And also remember, Yucatan is really far south in Mexico. Like I'm very close to like El Salvador, Honduras, Belize. It's a lot closer to Central America than to like the northern part of Mexico, like Juarez or say, I can't even think of some of these border cities like Tijuana is another one, but those cities are actually a lot further than like to Central America. But it still seems like the Mexicans are streaming into the U.S. left and right, so they must be seeking they must be seeking something over there. I don't know exactly. I sometimes wonder though the kind of Mexicans that come to the states, like some of them seem to have a lot of purpose and stuff in doing it, but others I don't really find that. It seems to be kind of irrational their ideals on things. But I mean, if I could go to Mexico and get like a lot of welfare and social subsidies and like free housing and free everything, medical care and stuff, yeah, it would seem like a great deal that it would be advantageous to say go to Mexico. But obviously, I don't get that here. But no, that's about it. Um, as far as yeah, cayenne pepper, and I do eat a lot of peppers and spicy kind of foods. Those are things I actually love, and I integrate almost every day into my diet. Um, yeah, for Mexicans, the grass is probably greener. And also remember, like I'm speaking on being in southern Mexico. I'm not in like Monterrey or closer to those northern cities where I think it does change a lot. I had seen a video recently, and if you look at the Mexican geography, most of the continent is uninhabited. So there's only majority of people tend to reside in a handful of cities in Mexico. But when you get further north, it actually becomes more desolate, and there's not a lot of habitation. So it's yeah, like everyone else, it all depends on the person and what they're like seeking out, basically. So yeah, that's about it, honestly, on my end, everyone. But like I said, not 100% sure how long I'll be here for. There's factors that play. Um, I actually do have a job offer in the U.S., and I'm not 100% sure if I want to take the job. It's actually in Minnesota, of all places. It's not bad paying the job, but it's not, like I really I don't know. I mean, if anyone's wondering exactly to what happened with my YouTube channel, yeah, I mean, I would have loved just continuing grinding out on. Back a few years ago, I was hitting numbers that like big channels were doing, and unfortunately, my momentum and everything kind of fizzled out. I had contacted some of the bigger players in this space to do collaborations and stuff, and essentially, none of them had responded back to me. So that's where I had to kind of shift into a different, just had to basically shift in different careers. But um, there's, like I said, I've told people. I mean, one of my biggest problems or difficulties is not going back in the past. Like I'm always looking back at what I things that I did. like in the past, and rather than looking at the future and what I can do, or in the present what I can do differently, it's it, it's always been one of my problems. But it, I yeah, each day I have to tell myself to make those changes. And also, I mean, when we look at like the U.S. economy, like when I was in my mid 20s, for example, like it was so much different, the US economy to now. Like I thought it was like subpar then, but like now it's like it's unbelievable. Like even then you could still like buy stuff and whatnot for like reasonable price, like assets and stuff. Whereas now it's like everything's like an asset. It's unbelievable. But other than that, I'll just leave this here. If anyone wants to schedule anything in the future, do like an interview or anything, feel free to. I'll try to upload like actual day-to-day life videos here in Mexico. I've tried doing some business interviews with. I tried interviewing a guy the other day who's doing a detail. He's a Mexican that was detailing cars. Potentially, I might be able to do some interviews with more, we could say, interviews that are more with more edgy figures. I won't get into that here. If I do those interviews, just know that I won't be releasing those interviews until I leave Mexico, because those could be kind of dangerous. We'll just put it that way. But other than that, I'd like to do like a day to day, or like going to a grocery store, just more everyday things that you deal with here. But other than that, have a good evening, everyone. It's September 29th. It's about 6:20 here. So thank you, folks. And like I said, contact me. My email's on my YouTube channel, and we'll end that here. So have a good one. Adios. Sayonara.